The dark goddess was never lost. She was buried. She was demonized. And they tried to forget her. But here's the thing. She's clawing her way out of the underworld. And through us, she's rising again. This isn't just mythology. This is personal. And this is sacred. Welcome back to my channel, Path of the Dark Goddess. I am Sirena Scarlett Fatale. I am a Chaos Witch, Shadow Work Guide, and Priestess of the Dark Goddess. This channel is where shadow work, witchcraft, and trauma-informed healing collides. So we love to explore the deep, the dark, the messy, and the magical. Because this path, it's not about light and love, it's about blood and bone, and truth and transformation. And today we're going to be talking about the Dark Goddess archetype. So the Dark Goddess is actually an ancient archetype, one that transcends borders, time, and space. You would find her in Sumerian myths, in Hindu texts, in Norse sagas, in African cosmology, and even within today's modern pop culture. But I want to make one thing clear. The term dark is kind of modern. The ancients didn't necessarily see this energy as evil. They didn't break things up into categories of dark versus light, good versus evil on the level that we do today. The dark goddess was often more or less seen as a necessary force or a natural part of life, a ruler of the underworld, a guardian of death, keeper of mysteries, and she wasn't feared, but she was revered and highly respected. You know, and some goddesses may have been midwives to souls or others creators of the cosmos, but they all held the power of transformation within their hands. Because here's the thing, life isn't clean, birth is messy, and death is sacred. And sometimes transformation requires descent. In my opinion, to really understand the Dark Goddess, we have to look at the Earth herself. Billions of years ago, this planet was a volcanic hellscape. And it happened during the time of the Precambrian time. That was like the era, the time frame, millions upon millions of years ago. So the Earth was chaos. There was molten lava, thunderous storms, toxic air. It was wild. It was destructive. And it was kind of uninhibitable. But here's the thing, from all of that chaos, life was born. Eventually the lava hardened into the land. The ash enriched and created rich soil. Gases formed the oceans and skies. And this mythology is what is called primordial chaos. Not the destruction for the sake of ruin, but destruction as a sacred portal and the fire of transformation in life. And the Dark Goddess is that fire. She is the volcano and the fertile valley that follows. She is the death, the rebirth, and everything in between. But here's the thing. As civilizations changed, so did our stories. With the rise of monotheistic religions, especially the Abrahamic ones, came a rise of patriarchal power structures. And the matriarch was erased. The feminine and the sacred feminine was stripped of her divinity. Temples were razed. Goddesses' names they attempted to erase and destroy. And worship was replaced with control. Indigenous cultures ended up getting colonized, spiritual systems were destroyed, and the goddess wasn't just silenced, she was villainized. And through Western patriarchal lenses, feminine power became dangerous. So, the Dark Goddess became a demon. And so in turn, so did women. And here's the thing, when we get into the concepts, and I touched on it earlier, where we talk about the light versus dark, these concepts of like light, dark, especially when it comes to like magic, are very rooted in some pretty repressive, not repressive, repressive and oppressive stuff that was there to villainize, and the witch burnings and, you know, racism when it came to Black practitioners who had with voodoo and hoodoo. And they boiled down a lot of these practices, a lot of these things that people were doing for reclamation or just downright just being women, into evil, into something that needed to be demonized and villainized. And so in the concept of black versus light, or black versus white, dark versus light, there is a lot of racism, misogyny, and some pretty nasty stuff. However, darkness isn't something that needs to be feared or hated, or villainized. And so I like the concept of dark as a form of reclamation of all of these things. So let's get into it a little bit more. So here's the thing. The dark goddess became more than a myth. She became more than evil. She became a mirror. And she reflected the parts that the parts of femininity that society, religion, and cultures wanted to repress, wanted to reject. And in my opinion, they feared a little. You know, she is the wild, she is the untamed, she's the emotional part, and there's nothing wrong with emotions. She's also the angry, you know, that anger, that justified anger. She's also the sexual part of femininity, the intuitive part where we know something's going on, but also the powerful part. She embodied, and she is this embodiment of all the repressed, rejected, and also unacceptable parts of the feminine. And her rage and her villainous storyline is often the result of abuse, heartbreak, repression, victim blaming, and just being downright villainized. Raise your hand if that sounds like you. She is the traumatized and abused female who's been institutionalized and labeled hysterical and lobotomized or fed a bunch of medication and all that stuff. She is the victim-blamed sexual assault and abuse survivor. Slut-shamed, you know, all that stuff. I'm sure you do. She is the wife who poisoned her husband, who absolutely snapped because it felt like there was no other way to escape his grasps. She is the grief-stricken mother who cradles her child's body in a war-torn country. And she's also the woman who's been told to tone it down because she wears too much, to change her clothes, or what did she do to deserve it, or if you wouldn't have dressed that way, you wouldn't have happened. All of those things we are told, all of those things that we experienced. But here's the thing is, deep down, that rage isn't irrational. That grief is not weakness, and her story is not shameful. It is sacred. So here's the thing, the dark goddess's voice and energy is alive in every single movement that fights for liberation. She's obviously woven into women's rights movements, but we also see her in LGBTQ rights movements. She's the life force of indigenous resistance. We see her all over the world when anyone who is repressed is trying to find their voice and take their power back. She burns in the throat of the protesters, and she stands in the front lines of every battle that stands for truth, equality, and freedom. Because here's the thing, is the dark goddess isn't docile. She's not soft-spoken. And she's not here to make you comfortable either. She is the voice that says, no more, the flame that says, burn it down, and the womb that says, birth something new. So I believe that we are not just entering a dark goddess era. We are already in it. We are watching systems crumble. We are watching people wake up. We are watching shadows, collective shadows, rise to the fucking surface. And it is fucking scary. It is messy. It is painful. I want to say it's sacred, but it doesn't feel like it right now sometimes. In fact, a lot of the times. Because we are at a point where there is a huge reclamation that is needed And we are at a pretty crazy threshold. And so may the dark goddess bless us. But here's the thing is we have to remember her and we have to embody and become her. So I want to say something really quick though. What about men? What about men? So what are some signs, symbols, and concepts and themes of the dark goddess? Well, the dark goddess wears many faces. She walks through many symbols, and she speaks in dreams, shadows, silence, and mystery. So here are some common themes and sacred threads that are woven through her archetype. We have transformation, death, rebirth, identity shifts, creation through chaos, where destruction will birth new life and new vision, justified rage, which is sacred anger as a response to oppression and injustice. She has a connection to the underworld as queen or a psychopomp. She can sometimes guide souls through transitions and not just actual death. Cycles of nature. She is very much aligned with the winter, decay, rest, and generation, but also Persephone, how Persephone brings in spring. There is duality, the ability to have these different things. Like Inanna was the goddess of love and the goddess of war. That's kind of a common theme with some of the older goddesses. The union of light and shadow, love and death, chaos and creation. Facing your fears, holding space for your shadows so that you can reclaim your power, sovereignty, really reminding you that your power is within your own. Sexual liberation, unapologetic, wild, and embodied sexuality. Wisdom through suffering, and this is where you get the teachings that rise from pain and soul loss, and learning how to transmute that pain into wisdom and into power and carry it forward instead of letting it just bog you down. So in the tarot, she can be seen as the high priestess, the keeper of hidden knowledge, death, transformation, rebirth, and surrender. The Tower card, upheaval, destruction, divine disruption, but also the Star card, hope, healing, and spirituality through darkness. These are the crystals that I feel she is drawn to. We have black obsidian, black tourmaline, black kyanite, smoky quartz, amethyst, labradorite, and rose quartz. Colors that I feel embody, black, deep purple, blood red, like a really earthy green, like a dark earthy green is one of them as well. Animals, spiders for weaving fate and creation, owls, messengers, but also keepers of ancient wisdom, snakes with the death, transformation, and sacred shedding, bats, initiation, and the ability to see in the dark, and intuition as well. The phoenix, I know this isn't like an animal, but resurrection and eternal becoming. Black cats, watchers of the veil, and the ability to shift between realms. Crows and ravens, messengers between the worlds. This is where I believe her realms and her sacred spaces are. Caves, the subconscious and womb of initiation. Crossroads. I mean, come on. Hecate. Ancient burial grounds. This is a deep connection with the dead and ancestors. Forest and wilderness. This is about wild, unclaimed power. The forest can also represent like spiritual journeys, especially if like there's a cave attached, but I'll get into that another day. Then we have deep waters, which is the emotional abyss and the psyche. Volcanoes, purification, death and rebirth, and the underworld, her eternal domain, but also the subconscious. So let's talk about ways she can show up in our myths, our media, and so forth. We have Maleficent, the Dark Phoenix, Jean Grey, X-Men stuff, Scarlet Witch, Mystique, Harley Quinn, Ursula, Carrie, Catwoman, Moana, Rey Skywalker. Those are just a few. If you know any, let me know below and I would love to look into it. But here's the thing. She's everywhere. And once you know how to see her, you will see her in many different places. But you won't just see her in myth. You'll see her in movement, and not just in ritual, but within the raw truths of your life. And this is the Dark Goddess rising. Whether you meet her in heartbreak and healing and protest, or maybe in pleasure, she will leave no part of you untouched. So here's the thing, there's this narrative floating around that the Dark Goddess consumes men, that she devours their hearts, that she steals their souls, and she leaves nothing but wreckage behind. But here's the truth. She doesn't just destroy them. She destroys the illusions that they have been forced to carry. Because here's the thing, what gender is taught to reject the feminine more than those raised as men? Because men are told, don't cry, don't soften, don't feel too much, don't need anything, do not show any level of vulnerability to anybody. Their emotional landscapes are stripped bare, and they are taught to express love through control, tenderness through sex, and any emotion is expressed through anger. And here's the thing. The Dark Goddess, she doesn't tolerate that mask. She shatters it. Her devouring is sacred. And it's not the man that she is consuming. It is his ego, his false identity, his fear of feeling. And the truth is, many men are deeply wounded. They are disconnected from their hearts. They are trapped in a story that tells them that they have to perform to prove their worth, that their only worth is within their pocketbook and how much they can earn and what they bring to the table on a monetary value. They are not taught anything else but that. And the Dark Goddess calls them to something different, to surrender, to stillness, to emotions and feelings. And it's not that she wants to dominate them. It's that she wants them to wake up. And here's the thing. Healing doesn't happen in isolation, and men are isolated. Men are pushed to deal with things alone. That's just what ends up happening. But men need the feminine, and not just romantically, but relationships in general. They need their mothers, they need their sisters, they need their daughters, they need their friends, they need their community. And they need to learn to listen, how to validate, how to hold and be held. And oftentimes, they're not going to hear that and get that from other men. I mean, I'm sure they're out there and there's great communities, but there's a part of them that they cannot learn that from through other men. That's just the truth of it. And I'm not saying we need to go take on all these men, but this is more of a call to men to go figure out, you got to learn that part. Because they need a community where softness is not a weakness, where vulnerability is sacred, and where being a man does mean wholeness, but with that wholeness means embracing those emotions, embracing that vulnerability, embracing that softness, and not seeing it as a weakness, but seeing it as an attribute. And I'm going to be honest, not a lot of men are ready for that. A lot will fight her, many will fetishize her, and others will try to make her submit and use her power for personal gain. But the Dark Goddess will see through that. She may offer healing, but if you enter her temple with a poisoned heart, you will feel her wrath. Because she's not here to coddle you. She's here to burn it down. Because the Dark Goddess is not just feminine. She is the repressed, and she lives within every gender, every identity, every soul who has been silenced, shamed, or told that they are too much. And her fire is within us all. And whether you meet her in ritual, in rage, or the wreckage of your own life, she is here to transform you, to tear you down with love, to rebuild you with truth, and return you back home to yourself.